All right, so we've been taking a look at the Draft.js component. It's a new component from Facebook that they announced at their last React conference. And it makes it really easy to control the editing experience around content editable, which has traditionally been a relatively miserable experience because different browsers will output different HTML as the user edits the content. So the Draft.js editor makes it relatively simple to control the content editable. So let me bring up Draft.js. But it does not implement anything for you. So in their example right here, they show you an H1, an H2, etc. You have to implement most of those pieces. Draft.js just controls the content editable right there. All right. So let's look a little bit at the code that we need to make that happen. Here I have an app.jsx. This is just a really simple Draft.js tutorial project. I pulled it from another example app off the internet. We're going to go ahead and add Draft.js into the page. And as we add it, hopefully it reloads and everything works. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to import the editor and the editor state from Draft.js. And I've already done the npm install Draft.js and everything, so it's already available in the project. So just as a note, you have to do that, of course, if you want to use it. The editor is the thing that actually controls content editable. Editor state controls the state. It's going to hold everything that happens as you edit the content. And it's also an immutable object, so you'll keep getting new states over and over again, and you can track that. So in case you want to do an undo or store a whole bunch of different states. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is in our constructor right here, we have to say this.state equals, we're going to have an editor state, and it's going to be editor state dot create empty. Okay, so that will create an empty initial state. So far we haven't done anything, so again, if I switch over, you'll just see a blank page. But let's go ahead and add the editor into the render. So right down in here, we have the editor. I'll give it some block style. Actually, let's not do all that yet. Let's just say, let's give it a placeholder. We do need to have an onChange. So basically, whenever the editor changes, it's going to call this method, and that's going to let us store off the new state as things change. So that means we need to go add an onChange method. So onChange is a function that receives the new editor state. And then we're going to call this.setState, and we're going to give it the new editor state. So just using the shorthand notation right here, it's the same as if I'd done this. Okay, the other thing I need to do is I need to give the editor state. So this parent component, in this case app.jsx, controls all of the state for the editor. It's the guy who gets to hold that information. So let's get that fixed. And it should be the same thing right there. Okay, sorry. Let's see. I also need to pass the editor state. Here that I have failed to return from render. So, yeah. So we're getting this.setState is not function. So onChange. Let's do this. I think that this isn't bound correctly. All right, so onChange is going to receive this new editor state, which is passed into us here. Okay, so that should properly bind the this inside of the onChange to the app class right here. All right, so for some reason it's not showing us our placeholder text, but you can see it lets me edit on the page right there. So that's working correctly, and we can go into our sources here, open up app.js, and onChange should be called, you can see as soon as I clicked it called onChange. We get this new editor state object every time. You can see it's an immutable record, and I assume that you can do stuff to it if you need to, like maybe with call2js just to see what it looks like. Okay, so that's how you would add it to a page. Let's go for something super simple here, and let's just add a button. To make things bold. And this is what I mean by you kind of have to do everything by yourself. There's a lot of sample code out there, so you only kind of have to do it by yourself. You can copy a lot of the samples, but you do have to implement all of your buttons for bold or header tags or whatever. So I think what we'll do is we'll say on click equals, do this again, make bold. All right. So then what you're going to do is you're going to be messing around with the rich utils. So we have to go import rich utils. So rich utils is what lets you interact with the content. This dot on change. Rich utils dot toggle style. Should be able to make stuff bold. Just have to find where there it is. So highlight a piece of that and I push bold, you can see how that content goes bold. So basically what that does is it grabs whatever is currently selected and adds an inline style of bold to what is currently selected. So you can see how you could add a whole bunch of different styles to modify the content. So then right here, we're going to just bring in convert to raw, and then we'll also need to add it to the render. Okay, so we're going to try convert to raw and put it right here. So each time we render, let's go ahead and convert our editor state. Okay, so we call this.state.editorState.get current content, which will give us a content object that we can then convert into raw. Okay, so we get back in objects, so we have to do JSON.stringify the object. And that will give us back the JSON. Okay, there we go. So now as I type in here, you can see the content get updated. So if I mark this as bold, you'll see that it creates a new inline style range. You can see the bold tag there with an offset and a length. Okay, so let's go ahead and put the cursor in the middle of the content block and hit enter, and you'll notice that we get a new block, and it's generating new keys as it adds new blocks, so each block will get a unique key. So let's look at a bigger example and bring in the entire Facebook sample app, which looks like that. So now, but we can still output the raw JSON, which I think is actually pretty beneficial. Just have editor state right there. Dot get current content. So we'll call convert to raw. We have to import that. Okay. Just, I don't know what's going on there. So now if I add an H1 and I click on H1, then you can see how it's adding new blocks down here. We'll make an H2. So inside of our JSON, there's the H1. Okay, so let's add, this is bold text. And so there's the style bold. I guess it uses capitals for all of its different styles. I can highlight it and remove H3. There we go. All right. It's a pretty cool editor, really. Like, it takes a totally different approach to this than everybody has taken in the past, and that's what makes it unique.